Buongiorno e benvenuti alla conferenza stampa di Kabul Between Prayers. Vi presento gli ospiti al tavolo che sono le produttrici Helen Fliplo, I don't know if the right pronunciation, Jia Zhao e il regista Hazara. Dunque, se ci sono delle domande alzate bene la mano e vorrei cominciare con una domanda per il regista. Questo è un film che osserva senza giudicare, ed è non un film sui talebani ma con un talebano, e quindi ci può raccontare un po' come è iniziata questa avventura, come è nata l'idea di raccontare questo mondo con uno sguardo naturalmente esterno, e che viaggio è stato questo insieme a Samim? You push the button. You can leave it. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I as a filmmaker, I think for me is the art of cinema more important than any sort of political indoctrination. That's why judgment is not the first thing that I think about it. Rather, humanity and a human approach is most important. So when Afghanistan collapsed into the hand of the Taliban, my generation mainly, who truly believed in democracy and freedom, were in a way extremely disappointed. Disappointed about the world that supported this whole process of giving the country suddenly to a group that were considered as terrorists before. So for me, it was like, what should I do? Like, the pain is too big, the sorrow is huge. How one could deal with this? And the only thing which saved me was, again, falling back into the world of art and thinking that first of all, I need to understand this new government, this new power in Afghanistan myself, rather than to act like we know it. We know them very well, and we can easily introduce it to the world. No, we don't. There has never been a clear picture about them. So far, always, they have been a very easy to reach villain, and everything can easily be blamed on them. Of course, they contribute to this themselves, but I need more. I need to see them with all the details. I need to see what kind of villains they are. So this was the starting point for me. And surprisingly, the process, well, at the end, it became very smooth. In the beginning, it was quite tough because we couldn't trust each other in the beginning. Me, my cameraman, belonged to this ethnicity called Hazara, and there is always conflict between these two. Hazara people has been marginalized throughout the history, and especially by the Taliban. So it was always a question mark. In the beginning, it was like walking in a dark room and not knowing which direction you are going to, but you have to at least try to take one step forward, 2 steps backward. It's a try and error process, and you have to rely on yourself because skipping every image that has been given to us about them, about my country, about my people by the world's media was the starting point for me, because we didn't trust nobody anymore but ourselves, and to find out with whom we are dealing. And then during the process, the trust was built after 1.5 years, and surprisingly, we started to understand each other, and we reached the point that we thought actually we could be quite good friends with each other, although we disagree on many points.
Ma quando ha incontrato per la prima volta Samim, perché lui ha accettato di farsi riprendere?
Yeah. It was pure coincidence because I was looking for a poet, because I hear that the Taliban has also poets, and it made me really curious, because normally a poet is more sensitive to the world, and all we know about them are aggression. So this was a curiosity, and I and my cameraman were like really looking everywhere for this poet we couldn't find. And accidentally, when we were on the bridge, my cameraman was on the bridge, so Samim was at his shift of checkpoint, and he started to approach us and talk us like, what are you doing? My cameraman had his camera on her neck, on her shoulder, and so he was quite excited about the camera. As a very young man, a very normal young man who get excited when they see a photo camera, and that's how we encountered. And well, again. Bit by bit, like the next week, we visit him again, and we introduce each other. We talk a little bit about everything, up until the point that we analyzed that, yeah, he's quite interesting person to start with.
Ci sono domande?
Buongiorno, Francesca Pierleoni dell'ANSA. Volevo chiedere al regista, oggi la mostra presenta anche un film in concorso, The Voice of in RAJAB, dove si racconta l'incapacità, oppure nonostante lo sforzo, ma comunque un mondo che impedisce di salvare una bambina imprigionata in una macchina a Gaza, e questo è un altro film anche su l'incapacità, sull'impotenza, sul tirarsi indietro rispetto alla situazione in Afghanistan. Lei ha fiducia ancora che l'Occidente decida di intervenire, visto che poi ha visto il paese appunto richiudersi, oppure no, oppure in questo momento vede poca speranza? Grazie.
Honestly, I really hope that the West do not anything again with our country, because all we have seen so far led to horrible results. It started with human rights, slogans, women's rights, freedoms, but after 20 years, when more than 1 million people got killed and the economy of country collapsed, they left without being accountable for anything. So the enemy in the beginning became their friends. So I think at least my generation are not waiting again for another military intervention in Afghanistan. I think it should come from the people of Afghanistan, and I have hope because there are very, very bright young generation who, at least as far as they can, they do things for their country.
Ho una domanda per le produttrici. Che cosa è stato invece per voi questo viaggio? Quali sono state le sfide produttive di questo lavoro? E il senso anche di essere donne alle prese con un paese che, insomma, non sono io a dover ricordare il tipo di atteggiamento che il regime ha nei confronti delle donne.
Maybe I go first, in general. And the challenge. I think in general, Hazara and I, I think each project is very challenging in its own way. But that's all built upon a trust. First of all, we have been collaborating since 18 years now. And I think that trust leads to also the trust in the artistic choices of things. And also you stick together to things which may go against the mainstream, let's say the general point of view. So I think that is the challenge, to stick to the point and stick together, and it has been proven that we have been doing this since the very beginning. And with regard to this project, I think it's just one of, also because it's a documentary film, it deals with safety, it deals with the trust, the respect, and to the people that you do not know, you want to know. And I think that is a challenge especially, I think also that's a little bit related with your question about the women and children and all that, because you have to calibrate yourself into zero when you approach your subject. I think that is a challenge, at least for all the team, without having any kind of glasses on looking at them. Mm-hmm. And of course, there are a lot of practicality when it comes to the material transfer and all that. That's a very complex situation. But but I think the first thing is really to position yourself towards the story.
Mm-hmm. I think the challenge is, of course, for the biggest challenge is, of course, for the team on the ground. And Ali Oktay, the DOP, couldn't unfortunately be here today in time, but he has shown a lot of courage, and I think that his camera, whenever he has put it, it is on the exactly right spot, because he films the protagonist on a very human level without any judgment. And for me, that is really important, that this film allows audiences to engage with protagonists as humans. And in today's world, where news cycles are continuing showing us images, I think this film is very important and timely.
Mm-hmm. Prego.
Hello, I have a question for Mr. Aminei. You mentioned the Hazara community, and for what I know, at least, the situation of the Hazara community is very little known in the West. And you spoke about the power of cinema, and I was wondering if, in your opinion, the cinema can help shed light on the situation of the Hazara community as well.
Absolutely, that's what I'm doing, at least. And My previous film was mainly focused on Hazara ethnicity in Kabul, which has been marginalized systematically, not only by other ethnicities in Afghanistan, but also by the foreign powers, by the foreign investors and stakeholders in Afghanistan, because they decide how much the budget should go to this side of the city and how much should go to that side and in other city, depending on the population of the ethnicity. So it's very dirty and dark. If you take a look at all this budget share in Afghanistan in the past 20 years, under the watch of the USA. And my next film, which is a feature fiction film, is particularly focuses on Hazara education in the past years, because the story happens in West Kabul. West Kabul is particularly populated by Hazara people, and it became a self-funded educational hub for the entire country because of the quality and the willingness of Hazara people for education. But unfortunately, that became a sign for danger for other ethnicities and terrorists, and they started to attack schools, sending suicide bombers to kill those students. So my next feature film is focusing on that, and we are quite far with finance, and hopefully soon we start the pre-production.
Una delle cose che... Aspettiamo che metta la cuffia. Una delle cose più sconvolgenti del film è proprio la contraddizione tra la vita quotidiana di questa persona e i bambini che giocano, le donne che fanno da mangiare, cioè tutto quello che rende la vita normale, serena per qualunque persona nel mondo, e poi questa vocazione alla morte, questa attrazione per la morte, per il suicidio, tanto che appunto si parla anche di esiste una scuola che educa al suicidio, che è già un'idea incredibile. Ecco, come hai lavorato proprio su queste contraddizioni, no? Tra la vita quotidiana e il lavaggio del cervello che porta a invidiare i martiri e a desiderare la morte?
I think that's the most interesting part of the film, the balance between life and the wish for death. And for me personally, the life part is more from Afghanistan, by the nature of that country, by the nature of those people. And those suicide dreams and wishes and the power of ideology is something that has been given to them since the past 50 years. Before, we didn't have that. Before, there was no radical religious ideologies school in Afghanistan. But it all started when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and ideology turned into a weapon with the support of the West. Because Afghan people are simple people. They have faith. They believe in their religion, but they never were in that like radical mindset. But this has been given to them by all these wars after each other, one after another. So you can see that in the film, that it jumps out of the context. It does not really fit to that nature. It does not really fit to that farming lands, and it does not really fit into their daily behavior, daily fun jokes, but it exists there. It's something that has been forced into their souls.
Mm-hmm. E se non ho capito male, lei ha diretto il film da lontano. E com'è stato proprio tecnicamente questo lavoro? Cioè come come ha lavorato con il suo operatore e in che modo ha diretto il film da lontano. Lei non può entrare nel paese, no? Mi sembra che insomma sia troppo pericoloso per lei fare il ritorno a Kabul.
Yeah. It was quite challenging, actually. You know, like half of my hair became white since then. but thanks to Ali, who couldn't be here, we did it. And I mean, I know the country, that city so well, like the palm of my hand, and I know the light during the day, at night. I know, so it's a map in my hand, in my head. But it was quite challenging in the beginning, especially the first 1.5 years, to orient, to find the balance between me and Ali, and between me and the protagonist, and with all these new legislations and rules and limitations that so far we could, and from that point beyond we are not allowed. So everything is so new for us to go through, and for Taliban as well, because cinema is quite a new media for them, and so anybody with a camera is potentially dangerous to them and have bad ideas about them. And so they limited us a lot, actually. So it was a tiny little window opened for us, and that's it. Take it or leave it. And we took that.
Samim ha visto il film? Does Samim watch the movie already?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. No. But it's in the planning. I mean, there is no cinema. There is no functioning cinema in Kabul, and it's gonna be a pity that he will watch it on his phone. That can wait a little bit.
But he knows.
Yes.
With what kind of movie did you grow up?
Oh, well, my childhood was more with novels, mainly Persian novels from the past, and but also novels from the world translated into Farsi by Iranian translators. Which then my father had a bookstore in Kabul, and he went to Iran. He buy those books and he brings it back to Kabul to sell it, and. But then, real cinema started for me with Japanese cinema from the 50s. Because it's also, now, back then I didn't really got it, but it was very interesting for me. But later when I revisit them, then I see more and more and more, and I understand why it was so intriguing for me, why it was so interesting for me. And I think one main reason is because the Japanese cinema in the 50s is right after the war, right after the nuclear bomb that America dropped on them. So everybody in that country was so determined to rebuild their country again from the ashes, including their filmmakers, because then they started to make films criticizing themselves mainly. What did we do that we arrived to this misery? And that's very interesting.
Any Italian movies at that time?
Yes, I mean, a lot. I'm a fan of De Sica. I mean, like neorealism, Italian neorealism influenced my vision in the cinema a lot, and that was also my thesis at London Film School when I graduated.
Un'altra domanda lì.
Volevo chiederle, ha detto appunto che i talebani controllavano comunque l'accesso che avevate al protagonista. Volevo chiedervi se loro chiedevano di vedere le immagini, loro che consapevolezza hanno che il film al festival, se in qualche modo lei ha avuto un contatto con le autorità talebane? Grazie.
They keep asking. They keep asking about because when they allowed us to make a film, we are supposed to give them a version, the final result. So they keep asking us about this. I don't think they know about the festival, and I really hope that we will show this film in Afghanistan too, because I'm also curious how would they react to this film. It's quite. I'm very curious to see how they react to this film. Yeah, we have. I mean, there has been films about Afghanistan and about Taliban that they follow a particular political agenda beforehand. You know, like filmmakers arrive there with already a prefixed image about Afghanistan, and they hit and run, and they think that they got it, but most of the time it's not right. You know, it's like this is not those kind of films. It's more closer to the soul of Afghan people. It breathes with them. It criticizes them as well, and so yeah, I hope that we could be able to show this film in Afghanistan as well without any problem, because that we also cannot predict.
E ci fermiamo qui. We have to stop here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
In questa condizione.
Buongiorno, benvenuti alla conferenza stampa del nostro film fuori concorso Remake. Prima di cominciare con le domande vi presento gli ospiti al tavolo a partire dalla destra in fondo. Il produttore Mark Meato, Hyun Kim, la montatrice, il regista del film Ross McElway e il montatore Joe Bini. So I'm going to start with a question, and then anyone that wants to contribute, raise your hand, and we'll extend it. Ross, you were here 14 years ago with Photographic Memory, and since then we've talked a few times about what was going to be your next film, and then it seemed to keep evolving. At some point it was something, and then it was something else, and then it became a remake. Can you tell us a little bit about how the evolution through the years?
Well, it's a long story. Let me see if I can compress it. It took, in fact... Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Yes, okay. Maybe it's better that I keep that off. Also, I know how to speak English, so I don't need this. So yes, how the evolution of the film. Well, at first, I was trying to find a way to make a film that would be a kind of continuation of other films I've made, starting with Sherman's March. And in general, my films have always had a base of being autobiographical, but have also looked out at the world and noted whatever feelings the filmmaker had about what he was encountering. And I assumed something like that could happen. I don't work from a script. I don't direct actors in my films. And so I just had a faith that something would come along that would enable me to continue to make the next film. Things had happened in my life. My family had started my marriage had started to fall apart. And when it became clear that we weren't going to be able to salvage it, I think my first inclination was to try to make a film about a 64-year-old man playing the dating game again, which is a kind of horrible thing to imagine, but I thought maybe handled with humor, I could harvest something from that situation. Then I got this call from a Hollywood producer and a director wanting to take a film of mine, Sherman's March, that I had made before, a documentary, and turn it into fiction. And I thought, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. This will be how I'll redirect the film I thought I was making. And my son, Adrian, was quite pleased with this direction. He had been, in his own inimitable way, trying to persuade his father for a long time to make real movies, as I say in Remake, and not my little documentaries, which had a loyal but small following. He wanted something bigger. I feel like The Rock talking about what he'd always hoped for in his filmmaking. But I was pretty content making the films I was making, and so I thought, let me just follow this and see where it goes. And so I talked to Steve Carr over the telephone. He's the director who had called me, and I actually liked him over the phone. He seemed unpretentious, and what was grounded, what really persuaded me to continue to discuss with him the possibility of making it into a fiction film was that He really loved Sherman's March, and he'd seen it when he was younger, and he had always wanted to make some fictional version of Sherman's March. And he spoke about it very eloquently, in a way that was meaningful to me anyway. And so we arranged to have the meeting, and the meeting turns out to be in the film remake, at least a small portion of it. It went on for quite a while, and there were subsequent meetings as well. And this seemed like a good way to go, but meanwhile, predictably, nothing was happening in Hollywood. They had meetings and meetings, and they asked me not to film in the meetings because, for the obvious reasons, they wanted to keep things under wraps. They didn't want to frighten away potential funders, other studios that might be interested in working with the idea of the film. So that was going nowhere for a long time. And then gradually the story evolved to become more and more about Adrian. And so when I came here in 2011 to show Photographic Memory, that was the film that I was working on. So it had evolved to that point. And then, of course, it had to evolve again after my son died.
You found a way to communicate with Adrian, you established a way to communicate with Adrian through images, through your filmed images and his film image. It was like a parallel conversation that you were having. Can you talk a little bit about that, and which clearly is also very present in this film?
Well, Adrian and I, for a long time, had been filming and talking to each other. He was very relaxed in front of the camera, and seemed to like being filmed as much as I liked filming him. And so after he was gone, I missed that dialogue, obviously, and I tried somehow to recapture it or recast it in what's called apostrophe in literature, where you're speaking to someone who's no longer there. And people write like this, of course, poetry and in some films as well, I think, you have people who are addressing people who are no longer there. That seemed to be the best way to go to satisfy this desire of communicating with him directly, almost as if I'm trying to recall what we talked about. For instance, when he's crayfishing with his little net, I felt I tried to imagine or remember what it was we talked about and recreate it in a sense. And yet I had to phrase it in such a way that it also took into account the fact that he was no longer with us. So it evolved. It kept evolving in that direction.
You've always used your own biography in your film. It's a way for you to speak of larger themes, about the world. In this film, we see at some point that the ethical, wisdom or power to do this is questioned. Was it a big struggle for you to decide whether you could keep filming or not?
The ethical issues behind the kind of filming I'd always done with him were very real to me. They seemed not to be problematical until after he died. And then I really started to, as Mark and Joe and Helen are certainly aware, I really wondered whether I had the right to take his footage, take my footage of him that I'd filmed earlier, any of this footage, and somehow use it in a film I was making. And I felt somehow I came to terms with possible ethical issues by simply saying he would want me to do this, which also sounds like a kind of too easy way to give myself the ability to do what I wanted to do anyway. But I think he really would. He wanted me to go forward with the film. He had also done a lot of the shooting that's in the movie, so I knew that he was working on a film of some kind about his life in Colorado, and in a way, perhaps it's presumptuous of me, but I think of this film as completing a version of that film, albeit a shorter version probably. And so for all of those reasons, I think I could justify the making of the film, but clearly there are some ethical issues that could be raised about whether I had the right to use footage of him or not. I simply decided I was his father. He would want me to finish this film, and so that satisfied me and gave me the go-ahead. I couldn't do this right away.
I imagine.
2011, 14 years ago,
Yeah.
no films between then, and
Yeah.
I couldn't even look at the footage of him for years, 2 years at least. And with Mark's guidance, we tried to sort of continue to follow the Hollywood fiction version as best we could. But eventually, I got drawn back into wanting somehow to include the story of my son and me.
There's a question.
If I could
Yeah, of course.
add my personal view, if I could add personal view on this, Ross stopped filming Adrian after photographing memory. Instead, Adrian was filming something for himself, for his own project, and because Ross couldn't really look at Adrian's most current footage, so I looked through his archive, what he filmed, and I could see this young man's desire to make a film. Like he went out at night alone and filmed like beautiful images over and over and over. I could see his desire to make something. And since I also make films, so I could see his passion. And it was sad that he didn't have a chance to finish his own film because of drug addiction prohibited him from finishing his own film. So I thought he would be happy if his father could show some of the efforts he made while he was alive. That's what I thought. And Ross really had a hard time looking at the footage he left behind, but I thought it was a good collaboration between father and son.
There's a question there.
It's here. Hi. I have a question that kind of ties back to what Julia was saying about the fact that when you were filming, you were obviously filming your personal life, but you also seem very grounded in the fact that you are filming personal moments. But I was wondering if there was ever an occurrence where you kind of lost the line between your personal life and what you were filming for the movie. And I also would like to add a personal consideration on the movie. I truly appreciated your work. I really loved the film. And from the film, Adrian seemed like a wonderful person, and I'm very glad that you shared your life and those images with us. It truly moved me, so yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you for that comment. Was there a question embedded in
yes.
there?
Were there instances where you lost the fine line between filming your own line and making a movie? I mean, that's what's been driving your work until this one. This must have been harder to keep that control.
Well, it was certainly more complicated, filming your own family. I think all nonfiction filmmakers who go into the world have to be aware of that line that you can cross, which is what you had mentioned, where you've gone over the line and you are invading someone's private world, and it's ethically, you can challenge it on ethical levels. With my son, I felt fairly safe about the line not being a problem, since we were both filmmakers in a sense, and we both were in the same family, and so in some ways it was easier to film him, and in other ways it was more difficult. But I tried as best I could to honor his presence in my life and his presence on screen. And I'm still getting to know the film as a separate thing from my life, and We had what's called a sound check this morning at 7 o'clock, where we just went into the Palazzo and watched, Mark and I did, the first 10 minutes of the film. And I said, it's here, it's happened. How did this thing end up here? And it's on a huge screen, and we're in a gigantic screening space. And soon, this is no longer going to be my film alone, it's going to be other people's films. So, you know, I look forward to talking to people about it after and reading it. And I guess I'll start to get a sense for whether it earns that spot in the world or whether it's deserved to be questioned. And I think for the most part, I assume it works, but I don't know. I can't be sure until I start reading the reviews and talking to people.
There was a question here.
Allora, la faccio in italiano, scusate. Comunque, intanto volevo fare i complimenti per il film che mi ha emozionato particolarmente, e io vedendolo, diciamo, ho letto anche una riflessione su quello che è il ruolo dell'immagine, del cinema, e volevo chiedere quindi, lei quale crede sia il ruolo dell'immagine e del cinema al giorno d'oggi, o comunque in generale, qual è il suo ruolo, la sua importanza, la sua potenza?
I could certainly, well, I couldn't write the book, but someone else could, answering that question. It's, I can only really speak about it in terms of my own film. And power of the image is something I was interested in. What does it mean to be making images from motion picture? And I think, you know, somewhere I've been quoting Christian Metz, who's a film theorist, who said the absence becomes the presence. The absence is now the presence when someone who's in a film dies. And in fact, in another film I made, Bright Leaves, which Mark also helped me with, that same question is raised. There's a film of a Hollywood star in it, and his love affair is alluded to with one of the actresses, Gary Cooper was the star. And neither person is alive, or one person was still alive at that time, one of the two people, but Gary Cooper has died. And so my question is, how do we regard this image of Gary Cooper in that film? And in my more recent films, it's how do I regard the images of my own family members? What does it mean that they're alive on film and they're no longer alive in the world? It's a very complicated question, and I think that my films try to explore that in some minimal way. It's a theme that's been woven into a number of the films I've made. But you know, when you ask me how we should regard images from films in general, I just couldn't begin to answer that question. It's very, very broad. It's a good question. I suggest you write a book about it and answer the question.
But do you, I think what he was also asking is if you believe in the power of film images, in their power.
Do I believe it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I mean, well, that's a different issue. Yes, of course, I believe in the power of images in films. That's why, one of the reasons why I make films. And I think that's one of the reasons we're all here at this wonderful festival, is because those images have real power. Am I understanding the question correctly?
I think that's what he was asking.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question that kind of answers himself. We wouldn't be sitting in this room if we didn't believe in the power of the images and the emotional content and philosophical content, of the political content that films can convey via images, and also sound. You know, sound is very important too. And yes, I do believe I don't disbelieve any of this. It's all very real.
May I say something really quick to that? It's just what's interesting, one element that's interesting in this film is this imagery that Ross shot, Ross's point of view, imagistically, cinematically, but then there's also Adrian's point of view. And Adrian had his own language, and Adrian had his own way of expressing through imagery. And it was quite different. And so that was it was something early on that we really wanted to bring into the film, to try to let, which was very difficult because Adrian wasn't around to say how he wanted his images to be expressed. So we tried to keep them as raw as we possibly could. I'd like to point out that Patrick Sasser was the associate editor. So when I say we, I'm saying all of us.
And Hyun too was also there.
And of course Hyun and Mark. And yeah, that was a big part of the film, was just trying to be what we thought was respectful to his imagery and how he wanted to edit. It was very, and also just want to say that it was just a really remarkable experience editing this film, because you know, the cliche is it's a labor of love. That's a cliche. But this truly was, in the sense that it was so much about love. It was so much about, you know, personally, just speaking for myself, my love of this man and my love of his cinema over the years, the films he's made, the courage that he, with his filmmaking. And then this particular film, this particular story. And when he asked me to get involved in it,
when was this, roughly, just to get an idea of the arc of time?
When?
Yeah.
Well, we actually met quite some time ago when when you're talking about, when he was talking about remake, and it was like, sounded like the funniest idea in the world and just hilarious. And then time passed, and of course, things changed. And he showed me an assembly that you guys had done, and it was, you know, the emotional pitch, for any of you that have seen the film, the emotional pitch is so intense that my entire reaction to the cut was, how can I help you finish this film? Regardless of it as a film, regardless of any considerations you would normally have in taking on a film as an editor, this was just, this film must be made, and how do we do it? So it was always, that was always the feeling, was the gratitude. He was so gracious through the whole thing, and his gratitude was so
I was
high.
exhausted, not gracious.
It's that, I just wanted to express that. I've never had an experience like this in my entire life, so it was amazing.
Well, Joe and I met at Sundance Documentary Edit Lab quite a few years ago, where we were both mentoring younger filmmakers. And I don't even remember how we started talking together, but I realized I had a lot in common with him, and I really wanted somehow to do something with him someday. That was years before. I just feel very grateful that you decided to jump in, because I was truly exhausted by that point. I could no longer really know where to go with the footage. Part of it was my grieving, part of it was the ethical complexities of delving into all of this footage that was not mine, and was also not someone's who could tell me how he felt about using it. So with this group of people and the people sitting here in the front row, somehow I found my way out of the jungle, and here I am. But it really was a group effort. And
Joe, as you were coming to this footage as an outsider, you hadn't, you knew Ross, but you hadn't seen it. What struck you, and what did you think you brought to, the outcome of untangling and making the film, helping Ross finish the film?
Well, it's a tricky film to structure, because there's the whole remake story, which is actually a very classic Ross McElwee comic, construct. But then there's, of course, the rest of the film, which is not that. It has, of course, elements, but it's quite tragic. And so that was very tricky, how to get the thing off the ground, and in a way that did both of those things. And then, as I said, that we really saw it. The more we looked at Adrian's footage, the more we sort of felt like we have to represent him in this cut, separate from Ross, and make it feel like this is Adrian's voice, not Ross giving us Adrian, because that's a whole element. That's another element to the film. So those things were it was a very tricky film, just structurally. He already had a lot of very beautiful essays and pieces that, to answer your question, when I first saw them, just blew my mind, and also felt a great responsibility to bring, but it was tricky, and he was also very, very stern about we have to be respectful, we have to. He constantly would say to us, after we thought like we would establish something, now do you think it's too long since we've seen Adrian? He said that about 25 times, you know. We're like, yes, Ross, it's you know. We haven't seen him for 5 minutes. Do you think that's too long? So.
Well, you know, one thing I just want to say quickly, and all my films have had large doses of humor in them, even when they're dealing with tragic situations. Somehow, in Sherman's March, I managed to make a film about both my awkward attempts to find a girlfriend, but also the dilemma of being in a nuclear weapons proliferation age, which we're right back in now, 30 years ago. Unbelievable. But to me, having humor was really, really important. And here suddenly I was in this situation where humor, I was not interested in humor. And yet it became apparent that I needed to somehow keep the absurd quest to turn Sherman's March into fiction as a theme throughout the film, or at least most of the film, just because that would enable us to avoid making a film, a documentary that was only depressing, a father trying to mourn or work through the grief he felt about losing his son. So I think we've achieved a kind of balance of humor and the tragedy of losing Adrian. And that was foremost in my mind. I don't want to make a film that simply sends people out into the world depressed.
Yeah, I didn't know Adrian, but like Mark, you did. And so the whole weight of that, you know, I know was really, really an intense thing for you.
Yeah, I did know Adrian. I met Ross when I was a student more than 25 years ago. And it's really the start of my film career when we were editing Bright Leaves together, and I got to know Adrian during that time. And I think, you know, it was Hyun who really was the person who sort of, she was describing, watched his footage, but really kind of brought into the film really taking Adrian the filmmaker seriously, and his voice. And, you know, an amazing thing about this team, you know, we're all sort of led by and inspired by Ross's courage to do this, right? I mean, a lot of the process of the film, but also this is in the film itself, is about overcoming a kind of a blockage or an uncertainty. And you know, there was this question earlier about crossing lines, and to me, I think one of the things this film deals with is not so much any one particular instance, but the accrual of a life lived this way, and a relationship conducted this way, like in toto, you know, all collectively together. Is that in of itself a kind of line crossing, or is there some sort of violation or a missed opportunity for choosing to do that? And I think, you know, Ross is speaking the truth. I mean, there were a couple of years there where it's sort of, I think you weren't really sure if you were going to keep making movies at all. You know, I think we all just, as a team, are so inspired by Ross and how he kind of kept moving us through that. And then also allowed space. You know, we came to a certain point where we sort of realized we needed some outside perspective. We needed someone like Joe to come in and help us figure out what we were trying to do and to land it. So it's just, I think in the end, it has been this very gratifying process that guided by love and Ross's courage.
Would you say, Ross, that you've always been a solitary filmmaker, and until you started dialoguing with Adrian through images, and would you say that this was a more collaborative process than your previous films?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I worked with Mark on one film in which you were editing, you were doing most of the editing, and we somehow found our way through that. The Making of Bright Leaves, but that was really the first collaboration I'd had in conceiving of a film and then pushing it through to completion. Photographic Memory, which we also showed here, I had another editor I worked with. We had a funding from Arte, and there was a deadline attached to that, so we really had to move quickly. And I was still teaching at that point, and Sabrina Zanelli-Ferreze was the editor, and she really kept it moving forward. So that was a collaboration of sorts, but not the same as the one Mark and I had. And all the films before that, basically, I just did them myself. I shot them. I'm still shooting all of my films, which I'm very proud of. But I think those days may also be coming to an end soon. I'm getting old and frail, and I'm not sure how long I'll be able to hold up a camera. The idea of working collaboratively this time around was a real pleasure, I have to say. I mean, there were a lot of frustrations for me because I'm having to give up control of material that I'm so used to controlling myself. But I think ultimately it was a very positive experience for me. And again, I look out over this little group of assistants here, or sitting here, and I think we actually moved to a two-tier support system of people, and everybody was critical towards coming up with the film that maybe you've already seen or you'll see soon. And again, looking at it this morning for the first time on the big screen, I was just floored by how beautiful it begins. And that certainly was the effort of a lot of people, not just me.
I'm sorry, but they called me that we ran out of time. Ross, thank you so much. We ran out of time.
Okay.
So thank you so much for making the film, for finishing it, for coming back, and thank you, everybody.
Buon pomeriggio a tutti e benvenuti alla conferenza stampa di The Voice of HIND RAJAB. Vi presento al tavolo il produttore Nadim Cheikroua, gli interpreti Amer Helel, Clara Khoury, Motaz Malez, Saja Kilani e Kauthar Benania, la regista. Allora, vi ricordo che il film sarà nelle sale italiane con I Wonder Pictures e prima di iniziare però vorrei dare la parola a Saja che ha qualcosa da dirci.
On behalf of all of us actors and in the name of the entire team, we ask, isn't it enough? Enough of the mass killing, the starvation, the dehumanization, the destruction, the ongoing occupation. The voice of HIND RAJAB does not need our defense. This film is not an opinion or a fantasy. It is anchored in truth. HIND's story carries the weight of an entire people. Her voice is one amongst tens of thousands of children that were killed in Gaza in the last 2 years alone. It is the voice of every daughter and every son with the right to live, to dream, to exist in dignity, yet all of it was stolen in front of unblinking eyes. And these are only the voices we know. Behind every number is a story that never got to be told. HIND's story is about a child crying out, "Save me." And the real question is, how have we let a child beg for life? No one can live in peace while even one child is forced to plead for survival. Let HIND RAJAB's voice echo around the world. Let it remind you of the silence that has been built around Gaza. Let it name the genocide that silence protects. And let it pierce the word enough. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. For justice, for the sake of humanity, for the future of every child. Enough.
Thank you Saja. Vi do subito la parola, vorrei cominciare con una domanda per Kauthar, per la regista. La storia di HIND ci era nota, insomma, questo terribile evento è rimbalzato tra i media di tutto il mondo e a lungo. Perché ha sentito il bisogno di trasformarlo in un film e cosa il cinema poteva regalare, poteva offrire a questa storia rispetto ai reportage televisivi? The press conference is in Italian. Everybody has the headphones.
Thank you for this question. You are asking me why a movie mainly. Why not? I would say, and because I think the news are so about amnesia that we should remember, and cinema can build this thing that we are. How to say, this precious feeling, which is empathy, that we lack a lot, to understand, to see the world from a silenced point of view, which is the Palestinian point of view, and specifically in this movie, the Red Crescent heroes that are trying to save lives, and they are confronted to tremendous obstacles. So yes, this movie was very important for me because when I heard the first time the voice of HIND RAJAB, there was something more than her voice. It was the very voice of Gaza asking for help, and nobody could enter. So yes, for me, it's important to, it was like a kind of a strong desire and the feeling of anger and helplessness that gave birth to this movie, but I was surrounded by wonderful people with all the support of Hind's mother, Hind family, and all the workers of the Red Crescent that are the real hero in this story.
Una domanda lì, Maria.
Hi, good morning. Maria Guerra, Quinótico, Spain. A question for the director. We've seen in the credits Brad Pitt among other big names, Hollywood names. My question is, do you think thanks to Hind's voice, Netanyahu could be losing the cultural war in Hollywood?
I have no idea. But I think that the fact that all those names joined the movie means something. And I think that things should change. We've seen that the narrative all around the world that those dying in Gaza are collateral damage in media, you know, and I think this is so dehumanizing. And that's why cinema, art, and every kind of expression is very important to give those people a voice and a face.
C'è il signore lì, poi qui arriviamo da tutti.
Hello, this is Michele Carmone from Le Salon Musical. Thank you very much to all of you for this movie. It's incredible, and we really didn't want it to end. My question is for all the actors. How did you manage to maintain this constant like tension during all the movie? What was your inspiration, and how did you work on that? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna answer the question straight away for myself and some of the actors also they has experienced like me. When I am from Palestine, Jenin in the West Bank, so when I was 10 years old, I've lived this kind of life, what's going on right now in Gaza, and I felt I just went back to my childhood. It wasn't easy. I felt like I died 1,000 times. Hearing his voice from the first moment just sent me back to my childhood. So it wasn't a new thing for me. It's a life I lived. So that's my answer for you.
Thank you for being here. I'm so overwhelmed by emotions. Usually, when you go and when you read a script, then you start to think how to understand and to bring into yourself the material that it's written, and because by the end of the day you need to stand in front of a camera and do it and try to convince people that you are that person and you stand behind the story. In this film, we didn't need that. Everything was inside us for 1.5 years. So immediately, when you read it, you feel like this is a duty. It's not a film for us. It was really a duty to go and do this because it's something that it was filled over 1.5 years, and then we needed that film to express ourselves and as actors and artists.
And if I may add just on that as well, usually with a film you create a character, you build this narrative in your head, but this film, there was no acting. As sad as it is, it was easy and hard to film. Easy in the sense of just because of what we've been seeing in the news lately, we're exposed to everything. We see what's going on, and these are real heroes on the ground that we portrayed. So it did not, getting into these roles was, as sad as it is, the easy part.
Hi. For me, it was a duty as an artist and an obligation to tell this story. We actually portrayed real characters also. So for the research, we spoke to the real people and the people who worked at the Red Crescent. And so we had this responsibility also to deliver something that is very truthful. And there was no acting there. The moment we heard the voice of HIND, the real voice of HIND, there was no, I'm acting right now. It was me as a human being reacting to her voice. And I think any person would do that too. So it's not like we're building a character now and we're, it's just sticking to the story and to the truth of the story. As an artist, we are obliged to do that. And this is our only tool to express ourselves as artists, is to tell the story. And thank you, Kauthar, for doing it.
Allora, c'è una domanda lì in fondo, poi qui.
Yes, hello, this is Yanis from Greece. Congratulations for a beautiful film. I think that in a couple of days we'll congratulate you for the Golden Lion. I hope so. One question, it's a bit practical. I observed the film, but one thing I missed is the element of journalism in the film. We don't see any journalists around that situation. We don't listen to people speaking to, we just have a hint that probably the news will find out. Can you talk a little bit about your perception towards the news and how they perceive what's going on? I know it's a bit general question, but do what you can do. Thank you.
No, I mean, when I talked to the real person in the Red Crescent, their mission was to save this girl. They weren't thinking about communication. And we see in the movie at some point when things became complicated, they said maybe we should go to the social media and the journalism. But at the same time, if we zoom out outside of the movie, we know that it's like calling for help and nobody is coming, even if journalists like amplify their call for help. So this is what happened actually in the real story. There was no journalist around because their first mission and work is to save HIND.
Qui, alla mia destra.
Hello, everyone. Usually I would say congratulations, but deep down I know that none of us really want to be here talking about this kind of stuff, but I think you made the single most important film of our recent times. And my question is, I want to assure you, it's not a provocative question. What do you say to those people that think or might think that using the real voice and the real images is kind of an exploitation of the pain and the real events. Thank you.
I've already heard this argument. It's an element of key, talking point, because when you amplify the voice of Palestinian, you are always personally accused of being exploitative, and it's another way to silence you, you know. So I think it's, I have nothing to answer, you know, to this.
Ci sono delle domande? Sì, arriviamo uno alla volta. La signora e poi il signore dietro. È uguale, basta che...
Hello, this is Natalia from W Radio Colombia. I want to thank you for the movie, and I want to ask you, do you think that this movie can give like a symbolic justice for King Rajab?
I hope that the justice will be one day not only symbolic, you know, because justice is very important to, but we are not yet there, you know. We are asking enough of this genocide, and when I think about even the word enough is not even enough, you know, because if you stop everything today, it's not enough. So, yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, I hope justice for HIND and all those who were killed, but we are a little bit far, which is abnormal, I would say.
Il signore lì, dietro.
Hi there. Adam Plowright from AFB News Agency. You spoke about this film, you saw it as a duty. Do you feel like the industry as a whole and some of its leading figures have failed in their duty to speak out about Gaza in the past? And is this film about you correcting that?
About me?
Do you feel like, you said you thought making this film felt to you like a duty? Do you feel like others within the industry, including some of its biggest figures, have failed in their duty to speak out about this?
I mean, I don't know. I think that for me, it was, I used the word duty, but it's not only this, you know. As I said, it was coming from an emergency also, and it was coming from a place of injustice, you know, when I see how Palestinians are dehumanized, you know, how Western media specifically talk about them, it's a shame, you know. So for me, it was, yeah, in a way giving justice to those people. But, you know, some days when I'm really depressed, I ask myself, what is the point, you know, of all this doing movies and... but I think it's important. Some days when I'm less depressed, I think it's important to speak up, to do movies. But we reached a level that is so bad that, yeah, I don't know.
Hi, over here. Hi. You started as a documentary filmmaker, and the last 3 feature films that you've done are between The Man Who Sold His Skin, who is inspired by real-life situations and occurrences, 4 Daughters, and this one. So I was wondering, what's your relationship between blurring the line between documentary filmmaking and fiction filmmaking, and especially concerning the last 2 films of yours, if you felt like, what kind of, how do you deal with the pain that you felt during filming such emotionally taxing situations? Thank you.
You know, I'd not call it blurring the lines between documentary and fiction, because for me the lines between genre are institutional, are not real, you know. It's like a frontier on the earth. When you go it's only land, you know. The line doesn't exist. So I've never been comfortable with the strict separation between genre, and I think cinema is bigger than this. And I think that in those marginalized frontier, you can like renovate, maybe it's a big word, but you can find adequate form to tell real stories, for example. So for me, when I heard the recording for the first time, it's a document. So, I mean, the first thing you think about it is making a documentary, but there was something about what I felt when I heard the first time the voice of HIND RAJAB. It was a feeling of helplessness and anger. And I thought that if I do a movie from the point of view of the Red Crescent employee, it will translate my feeling. If I felt this, how, I mean, she was asking them to save her, and they felt helplessness. So for me, it was like the right point of view to tell this story, and it's dramatization actually, but very close to what they experience it, that they, as Clara said, or every real character, I would say, spoke a lot with the actor. So yeah, like for me, the question was, what is the best way to share this document in a way that can honor the memory of this little girl and all her family and the paramedic Zainu and Yusuf Zainu and Ahmed Madoun.
Lì, prego, e poi andiamo di qui, alla mia destra, prego.
Hi, I'm Zakaria from London. I'm speaking for Future First. Firstly, thank you all for coming to Venice Film Festival. And 2 years ago, I was at the London Film Festival seeing your previous film, Four Daughters, where you were there for a Q&A, and I thought it was a heartbreaking docudrama that really opened my eyes. So I wanted to thank you for that. For this film, my big question is, in this current world where children are constantly dehumanized, especially in the Arabian world, people of our skin color, how do you hope for your film and from your heart to convey that these children are of equal values, of equal lives to everyone else? And lastly, for HIND RAJAB personally, I know this film is speaking about the genocide of the Palestinians of Gaza, but for HIND RAJAB herself, do you know, or could you share anything positive, something that you know, something sweet, or any heartfelt knowledge you know of her that you can share to us?
I mean, when you see the end of the movie, I shared like Hind loves the sea, the beach, you know, and for me it was a very important information that her mother told me, and because we know that this beach in Gaza, this project to transform it in Riviera, you know, by Trump, and so it's like when I think about Hind playing in the beach, and I think about this project, I ask myself, in which world do we live, you know?
Hello there. Hello, Ben Dalton from Screen International. Congratulations to you all on what is clearly a very important film. Returning to the topic of these high-profile people who joined the film last week, so Brad Pitt, Alfonso Cuarón, Joaquin Phoenix, Kauthar, could you speak a bit about how that came about? What kind of conversations did you have with them? Did they have any concerns? And what their role is exactly on the film?
When we were at the end of the editing, we had like with us Jim and Odessa, our producer in the movie, and with Nadim, we tried to show the movie to several people, and they were yes, they are here to support the movie, and I'm very happy, and I never in my life thought that it can be possible. So I'm very grateful for their support.
Nadim, as a producer, what was the main challenge of making this movie, and what is your position about your work with the director? And
actually, the main challenge was to make the film fast, quickly. We were preparing with Kauthar another movie, and when she told me that she wants to do the story, and I was feeling the same kind of thing as her, which was, we can't stay just watching what's happening and do some other stuff. We need to do this movie, and we needed to do quickly. So Kauthar wrote quickly the script, and we shot it. And of course, some people told us it's going too fast, but we had this feeling of emergency that we have to do this. So yeah, the main challenge was to be able to shoot the film with very few partners, but some of them were in the beginning, and I thank them. I won't name them here, but they were there. And then, little by little, some other partners came. And as Kauthar said, with Jim and Odessa here, it was a quite long journey, doing the film, financing, post-producing, financing, finding some more money, and never stop the process because we felt we have to go fast, because the main idea of the film is, we came from a place of silence. At that moment, we couldn't even say any word, so it was important to make the film be out and reach the largest audience, So yeah, this was the main challenge.
Signor Ali?
Yes, thank you. Yanis again. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask a second question I had to the actors before. And it is, if there was a moment when professionalism stopped during filming and real crying, as human crying, started.
A moment? That was, I think, all over the days of the shooting. There were the mixture between reality and, because when you hear Hind's voice, that's just, throw you back to reality in the hardcore of reality. And then everything was mixed for everyone. Crying, I think it was, tears were, dropped always, every day, every moment.
I will say, though, that Kauthar decided to not let us hear Hind's voice until we were on set, even in rehearsal. So I think when the first time I heard her voice on set, even though anything prior to that was also very emotional, but hearing her voice and that decision to not hear it in rehearsals and just on set, really what Clara said gave that reaction. Because it's one thing to read the script and to know exactly what she said and rehearse that, but it's a whole different aspect when you hear her voice.
Yeah, we only heard her voice on action, actually. We didn't do the rehearsals, we barely heard her voice. But once we're in it, there was a lot of tears. And also the team was in tears. Everybody. We were in a very small and closed set, and everyone was engaged, the whole film set, because of the cause, because of what's happening in Gaza and the genocide, the ongoing genocide that is not stopping yet. So, voila.
As I mentioned before, that I had a tough childhood in my city. So it felt, even without even living the experience I did, the moment I heard Hind's voice, I felt like this is a reality. It's not a fiction, it's not a film, this is a real voice. Send me back to the time where I was begging when I was a kid for safety. I was lucky enough to survive and be here. Like, I feel privileged being here, like I'm saved. But the moment I heard her voice, it sent me back. And I didn't feel for a moment that I was acting. I was living it. And there was 2 times where I couldn't keep filming. I had a panic attack, and I had the support from everyone also. It was hard, but it's a responsibility for me. Like, I should do this. We should do this. Because if we don't do anything, who's going to do it? So that's my experience. I lived it. I didn't feel there was acting. It's a life. It's a real thing.
Thank you. Thank you. We have to stop here. Thank you so much. Molto bene. Allora, benvenuti alla conferenza stampa di DUSE. Vi presento i produttori: Massimiliano Orfei, Paper Film, Paolo Del Brocco, Rai Cinema, Benedetta Cappon, Avventurosa, Carlo degli Esposti, Palomar. Gli interpreti: Fanny Rocha, Noémie Marlin e Valeria Bruni Tedeschi. E il regista e sceneggiatore Pietro Marcello. Ma in prima fila abbiamo anche Fausto Russolesi e gli sceneggiatori Letizia Russo e Guido Silei. Allora, vi ricordo che il film sarà nelle sale il 18 settembre con Piper Film. Vi lascio subito la parola, vorrei solo cominciare per rompere il ghiaccio, ma forse non c'è bisogno di rompere il ghiaccio. Una domanda per Pietro, semplicemente com'è avvenuto il tuo incontro con Eleonora Duse e perché hai scelto di concentrarti in particolare sugli anni che vediamo?
Ora mi sentite? Grazie a tutti di essere qui e voglio ringraziare tutte le persone in sala che hanno collaborato al mio film, dagli assistenti ai quadri. E riguardo al film DUSE, grazie a Letizia Russo e Guido Silei che lavoravano nelle ricerche di Eleonora Duse, sono rimasto affascinato da questo personaggio perché sono sempre stato affascinato dai personaggi rivolta, come in tutti i miei film. È così che ci siamo imbarcati in questa storia e fin dal soggetto ho pensato a Valeria Bruni Tedeschi per realizzarlo. Nel senso, non c'è stato cast per questo film, è stato pensato subito a lei. Innanzitutto di raccontare, non come biopic, bensì lo spirito della Duse, perché poi non sono affascinato dai biopic e poi con quale arbitro poterla raccontare, visto che il lascito, quello che è rimasto della Duse, sono tante foto. C'è un film cenere e c'era una registrazione audio che realizzò Edison che è andata perduta e quello che mi interessava era lo spirito di questa donna che ha potuto impersonificare Valeria e lo abbiamo realizzato, il film in stato di grazia.
E perché questi anni? Cosa ti interessava mettere a fuoco di questi anni?
Ma perché erano gli anni della dissoluzione. La Duse è un personaggio ottocentesco che si affaccia sul secolo breve, il Novecento, è un po' quello che avviene in questo momento storico, è il tempo dell'ignavia, dove niente è vero e tutto è permesso.
Arriviamo da tutti. Allora, cominciamo con una domanda qui, davanti.
Ecco, quindi mi chiedevo a Valeria e anche a Noémie Marlin come hanno, soprattutto Valeria, come ha potuto lavorare come attrice su un personaggio di cui non esiste tanto materiale. L'anno scorso so che Sonia Bergamasco ci ha messo mano, ha fatto un suo lavoro a teatro e quindi mi chiedo soprattutto Valeria e poi anche a Noémie Marlin, mi sembra che abbia recitato in italiano, è un'attrice francese, credo forse la sua prima esperienza in Italia, credo. Grazie.
Io quando ero giovane avevo una coach con cui ho lavorato il metodo di Strasberg, che si chiamava Geraldine Byron, che è morta 15 anni fa, e che ci parlava moltissimo della Duse. La Duse all'Actor Studio, c'è un'enorme foto della Duse. Strasberg adorava la Duse perché aveva l'impressione che, senza saperlo, la Duse avesse capito qualcosa del metodo. Stanislavski e Chekhov l'adoravano anche. Era successo che in 3 parti del mondo diverse qualcosa del mestiere dell'attore era cambiato e la Duse ha scoperto qualcosa, ha fatto cambiare qualcosa, cioè la verità, cercava la verità. E questa mia maestra ce lo comunicava, ci faceva fare dei laboratori ad Asolo. Perciò quando Pietro mi ha proposto la DUSE io mi sono riconnessa immediatamente con Geraldine e ho pensato di dedicare il mio lavoro e di lavorare con lei, di farla, perché lavoro spesso con i morti e è stato felice per me chiedere a Geraldine di venire e poi anche chiedere alla DUSE di venire come una persona che avrei incontrato un po' in un treno con cui sarei diventata amica. Ecco, ho cercato di diventare amica con lei e di essere l'amica, anche che lei mi volesse un po' bene. Spero che con questo film lei mi vuole un po' bene. E poi ho anche lavorato molto con una biografia di William Weaver, fantastica biografia, e molto con le lettere che lei ha scritto a sua figlia Enrichetta, che sono un tesoro anche di scrittura. Era una grande scrittrice e queste lettere mi hanno molto ispirata. Qui.
Sono innamorata del cinema di Pietro e di Italia, so it was a dream for me to play in Italian, but I can understand but not speak yet. I'm taking lesson, but when they asked me to audition for it, I was very surprised, but since I know the cinema of Pietro and I love also Valeria, I was very excited. So I auditioned and I learned the letter of Enrichetta and just I pretend that I spoke Italian, and they decided, they were really nice with me because they know it was, sometimes we had to do improvisation, and so for me it was sometimes hard, but they helped me a lot. And so I thank you, Pietro and Valeria, to have trusted me. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And Fanny, how did you approach your character? Fanny, how did you approach your character?
Allora, per me è stato veramente ecco già sto per piangere, il regalo più grande della mia vita, perché ho studiato tanto e dopo aver finito la scuola qua a Roma, il centro sperimentale, ho fatto per almeno 6 anni tantissimi provini, mai neanche fino al callback, e invece Pietro mi ha accolto e la sfida forse più affascinante di questo personaggio è stato che lei ha sostenuto la DUSE almeno per, 20 anni e non se ne parlava mai, e poter dare la vita a qualcuno di cui, forse è lei di cui avevamo il meno materiale, però gli sceneggiatori, Pietro, hanno dato tanta vita anche a lei, e secondo me è molto importante far vedere anche quelle persone che accompagnano poi. Per esempio lei che ha accompagnato l'attrice più grande d'Italia, conosciuta anche in Ungheria, in tutta l'Europa, America. Oddio, ho risposto? Bene.
Hi, my name is Zakaria from London. Firstly, congratulations on the film to you all. I look forward to the premiere tonight. And not sure if you remember me, Noemi. I interviewed you last year for your film, The Balconettes in London. So it's nice to see you again. And my question for you is, could you share your joys on working on this film particularly? And how was it like to work with Valeria specifically? Is there anything specific, your favorite thing about her that you'd like to share?
Thank you for your question. For me, when I didn't know nothing about La DUSE, and it's a shame. She's like so many incredible women that has been erased from the history, and were so important because, like for me, even as an actress, I think I use things that she invented when she was an actress. Like just showing our faults or things that are not perfect, and just show the true and sincerity. So it's very important as women to show just not that we are perfect and mysterious, and no, we just go with our heart and our bodies and what we are and our age. And so I was, okay, a story of a woman like that who is an artist, an entrepreneur, very strong, not perfect at all, and that but doesn't find the way to communicate enough and give space to her daughter. It happened a lot of time that you show that this kind of story of men, it's kind of normal, but it's true that when it's a woman, we are like, oh, she has a career and she doesn't have this with her daughter. So I thought it was very, very important for a lot of things to do this movie. And Valeria, for me, she is just like a force of sincerity, and she is so much in love with actors and actresses that it's an immense joy and pleasure to work with her, and a chance also.
Thank you.
Signora.
Hello, Natalia Job, Carta Berlin and Accent UK. My question is, I think, to Valeria and to Pietro mostly. In this film, it's this complex situation with DUSE being a very spiritual personality and complex, but in general a very humane person, and at the same time supporting Mussolini and truly believing in what he's suggesting, and how important it was for you to decide this conflict, because it's like a very talented person supporting their very cruel regime and even not understanding it to some extent. Thank you.
Ma io penso che non è che era da parte di Mussolini la DUSE, a un certo punto si è sbagliata, succede a tutti, si è sbagliata per ingenuità, per presunzione, ha pensato che di poter ottenere un teatro da Mussolini, ha pensato di poter andare contro l'arroganza e la brutalità del fascismo e di vincere. Invece no. Però quello che è importante per me è pensare che tutti possiamo sbagliare e che fa parte dell'essere umano, e che non ho raccontato un personaggio perfetto, ma i personaggi perfetti non sono interessanti da raccontare.
Rispondo io anche a questa domanda, che trovo che sia una domanda importante, perché bisogna un po' sparigliare su questa storia della DUSE, perché effettivamente la storia racconta quello che vuole. Lo è stato anche per Shostakovich, che suonava per Stalin, poverino, e lo ricordiamo a Shostakovich come uno tra i più grandi compositori del Novecento. Nel caso della DUSE credo che il fascismo si sia appropriato di questa figura, come si è appropriata del Milite Ignoto, che è stato un simbolo di pace, che poi è servito come eroe nazionale per fare le guerre d'Africa e compagnia bella di tutto quello che è stato quello sfascio del fascismo fino all'avvento della Seconda Guerra Mondiale. Per questo la storia, il potere è stato sempre attratto dagli artisti, e gli artisti innanzitutto sono delle persone fragili e umane, perché prima di essere artisti sono degli umani, e questo è quello che penso. Poi sono state raccontate tante storie della DUSE, a noi quello che interessava era raccontare il suo spirito, anche la sua fragilità, attraverso la bellezza, l'arte cura l'anima di genere attrice.
Sara D'Ascenzo del Corriere del Veneto, una domanda per il regista Pietro Marcello: che cosa ha dato secondo lei Venezia a questo film?
Vabbè, se chiedete a me di Venezia, per me è una delle città più belle del mondo, perché quando ero ragazzo l'ho vissuta e ho avuto il privilegio di poter girare a Venezia insieme a tutti gli altri che sono qui in sala con me e di aver riconsegnato questo film alla Laguna, diciamo, è un po', credo un po' nel destino, e credo che il ritorno qui è una cosa molto bella e che mi emoziona tantissimo.
Salve, Giulia Bianconi del Tempo. Volevo chiedere a Valeria Bruni Tedeschi, visto che prima Pietro Marcello parlava dello spirito della DUSE, quanto lei condivide di questo spirito, di questa artista che dopo 10 anni di silenzio, di allontanamento dalle scene, poi ha ripreso la sua carriera in maniera così forte e ardente. E poi prima, visto che parlava del rapporto con la DUSE, della sua insegnante, cioè in che modo si è riconnessa a queste due figure, cioè spiritualmente, realmente? Ecco, grazie.
Ma io per tante cose spiritualmente mi sento familiare con la DUSE. Per esempio il fatto che anche per me, come per lei, il lavoro è ossigeno. Lei aveva la tubercolosi, però per lei c'era più ossigeno su una scena di teatro che in una casa di cura in montagna. L'ossigeno vero per me è il lavoro, la possibilità di fare il mio lavoro di attrice, di fare il mio lavoro di regista, di scrivere. Ecco, questo è ossigeno. E anche un'altra cosa per la quale mi sento familiare con lei è che non era una star. Io non mi sento per niente con la volontà di essere una star, e aveva quest'idea che migliorarsi umanamente era più importante che di tutto, e che anche per migliorarsi artisticamente bisognava lavorare la propria umanità. Ecco, la sua umanità mi tocca, il suo voler essere attenta agli altri, attenta alla fragilità degli altri. Tutto questo a me mi commuove e mi sembra familiare, mi sembra importante. E come ho lavorato con lei, ho lavorato in modo segreto, non posso tanto raccontarlo, però faccio delle specie di riunioni, quelle riunioni in cui parlo così con queste persone che mi aiutano a lavorare, che siano persone morte o vive, che esistono, che convoco, faccio tutta una mia... Così, ci sono tante persone nella mia stanza e poi dopo vado sul set e mi sento forte.
Pietro, mi sembra di aver capito, sono qui al tavolo. Mi sembra aver capito che tu prima parlavi del fatto che Valeria fosse l'unica attrice a poter interpretare questo ruolo. Mi sembra di capire non tanto perché fosse l'unica attrice a potersi calare nei panni della DUSE, ma perché è stata sono proprio le sue caratteristiche di attrice, il suo modo di lavorare, la sua personalità a dare forma alla tua DUSE. Cioè è quasi un lavoro contrario.
Allora, innanzitutto Valeria è anche una regista, che per me è stato importantissimo condividere con lei questo film, anche perché io, venendo dall'archivio, dal documentario, amo l'imprevisto. Per me l'imprevisto nel cinema è l'infa vitale, perché in sé la sceneggiatura è un'opera incompiuta perché c'è la trasposizione filmica, e questo mi ha permesso di realizzare questo film, estrema libertà con lei, dove c'era una condivisione attiva nel fare cinema, e visto che lei anche ama l'imprevisto, diciamo che mandavamo al manicomio tutti, però in fondo poi c'è anche il mio produttore esecutivo in sala, chiudevamo la scena, chiudevamo le scene, e grazie al mio aiuto regia Ciro Scogliamiglio ci riuscivamo sempre a ritagliare quei 20 minuti per andare per conto nostro. No? Sei d'accordo?
Assolutamente. Poi c'è anche questa cosa che la DUSE era conosciuta per piangere, piangeva, dicevano tutti quelli che l'avevano vista, la si vedeva piangere, e poi io anch'io ogni tanto piango. Allora, Pietro questa cosa ha dovuto anche cancellare, no? Un po' di...
No, è Chiagnazzara, ma perché ama anche la DUSE, piangeva, e poi credo che sia un sentimento naturale piangere. piangere.
No, ma adesso ridiamo,
niente di
però
male.
c'è qualcosa della sua fragilità che ci sembrava veramente importante da raccontare oggi, in un mondo in cui sembra che invece siano i forti che devono vincere.
E approfitto proprio di queste parole di Valeria, che sottolinea la necessità di un film che racconta un personaggio così oggi, per chiedere ai produttori, non so chi ha voglia di rispondere, che cosa avete amato di questa DUSE, di questo modo di raccontarla e del fatto che lo si faccia proprio oggi.
Quando Pietro mi ha proposto, per me la DUSE era un teatro di Bologna che si chiamava il DUSE al maschile, e sono partito da lì, cioè ho visto il teatro più importante, ho visto l'arte teatrale da ragazzo e sono partito da lì e da una grande volontà di lavorare con Pietro e lavorare con Valeria. Lui è arrivato proponendomi un film sulla DUSE con Valeria Bruni Tedeschi e l'ho considerato un dono del cielo, e anche in un momento come questo raccontare l'arte, una grande artista che è stata al di sopra di tutte le vicissitudini politiche dell'Italia. Lei ha viaggiato sempre sopra, molto alta, e sulle nuvole mi è sembrato un modo molto interessante e spiazzante per parlare anche dell'oggi.
Domande? Sì, non vedo, ma mi fido. Sì,
Valeria
vai.
Caprara.
Sì.
Fulvia Caprara. Allora, no, volevo fare una domanda su questo al regista e a Valeria Bruni Tedeschi. C'è un incontro fondamentale, insomma, che a me è piaciuto molto nel film, che è quello con Sara Bernard, dove c'è praticamente un confronto anche su quello che è l'arte, la funzione che deve avere l'arte, se l'arte deve essere in ascolto di quello che succede nel mondo oppure invece no. Addirittura a lei gli fa una specie di rimprovero, insomma, tu sei rimasta ancora legata a un mondo, ma non vedi che dopo la guerra è cambiato tutto. Io volevo, siccome anche oggi stiamo vivendo un momento di questo tipo, cioè di questo tipo nel senso che succedono molte cose, volevo una riflessione su questo, cioè l'arte quanto deve essere poi in contatto stretto con la realtà, quanto non deve esserlo, in che modo questo film si pone rispetto a questo problema? Grazie.
Preferisci rispondere prima lei o prima io? Per me è lo stesso. Vabbè, nel senso, noi in Italia abbiamo avuto il neorealismo perché c'è stata una tragedia che è stata la Seconda Guerra Mondiale. Senza la Seconda Guerra Mondiale non ci poteva essere neorealismo. Questa è una cosa che penso. Noi siamo figli di un'epoca che è un'epoca, l'epoca dell'ignavia, della confusione, dove, perlomeno parlo della mia generazione, è l'epoca della non speranza, a differenza di chi è venuto prima di noi, no? Del dopoguerra, dove è stata l'epoca delle grandi speranze. E oggi siamo figli di un'epoca dove non esiste più un immaginario, e l'arte è potente quando viene realizzata attraverso la bellezza, che è la bellezza dell'anima, come ho detto prima. Ora è il momento della disobbedienza civile, forse è un momento di riflessione per tutti, per sapere dove andiamo e che cosa facciamo, perché in fondo siamo tutti soggetti all'industria culturale, però non c'è niente di male di tornare a mangiare pane e cipolle per fare il cinema e farlo dal basso. Questo è quello che penso io, e lo penso ancora di più in questo momento, che è un momento per me di autocritica nel fare cinema, perché amo tanto fare il cinema, il resto mi frega ben poco, perché in fondo probabilmente ci dobbiamo dedicare all'insegnamento e di creare scuole popolari e fare altro di quello che abbiamo fatto fino ad oggi. Questo è il mio punto di vista, sono alquanto critico a questo momento storico, sono un libertario e sono per la disobbedienza civile totale. Quello che mi affascina in questo momento e che mi ha emozionato è quello che sta avvenendo nel mondo e dei camalli genovesi che sono pronti a bloccare il porto di Genova, e questa è la cosa che mi affascina di più. Perché probabilmente un gesto così rivoluzionario e politico l'ho letto solamente nei libri, che negli ultimi 40 anni dal basso nessuno ha rivendicato la disobbedienza civile, e questo a me mi riempie il cuore. E sono un libertario e ho sempre avuto una visione, come dire, pensando a Camus, pensando all'uomo in rivolta, e in un certo senso ho abbracciato questo film DUSE con lo stesso spirito di come ho realizzato altri film nella mia vita. Per questo grazie a tutti.
Credo che la domanda fosse anche per Valeria, giusto?
Ma io non so neanche più qual era la domanda, trovo che la risposta sia esaustiva, però non mi ricordo più della domanda.
L'influenza, sì, il ruolo dell'arte, diciamo, in un momento in cui...
Io penso che l'arte, pur raccontando la violenza, la crudeltà, la perversione, l'orrore dell'esistenza, però secondo me porta pace, porta sollievo, è catartica e porta l'essere umano che guarda lo spettacolo di se stesso ad avere più empatia, e oggi quello di cui abbiamo bisogno è dell'empatia per l'altro. Finché non riusciamo ad avere empatia per la persona che ci è vicino, non possiamo sperare che le guerre finiscano. Allora penso che sì, che l'arte sia uno strumento forte di pace.
Grazie, dobbiamo fermarci qui, grazie a tutti.
Maybe you have to press this thing when you're on top, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno, benvenuti alla conferenza stampa del film In the Hand of Dante. E prima di cominciare con le domande vi presento gli ospiti al tavolo a partire dalla destra in fondo. L'attore e autore delle musiche Benjamin Clementine. L'attore Oscar Isaac. Il regista e cosceneggiatore del film Julian Schnabel e l'attore Luis Cancelmi.
Cancelmi, è tantissimo, Cancelmi.
Cancelmi?
Sì.
Fine. So before I open to the audience question, I have a question for Julian. Julian, when did you get acquainted with Nick Tosh's book, and when did you decide that you wanted to make a film about it?
About 15 years ago. Well, I made a movie called Before Night Falls, and Johnny Depp was in the movie, and we've been friends for I guess as long as I can remember knowing him. Anyway, he had these books, and he said, well, let's make a movie, and why don't you pick one of these 5 books? And I picked the book that was the most impossible book, and then started to work on that. And then life takes over and things go by, and then about 9 years ago or something like that, things changed a bit between Nick and Johnny, and but Nick Tosh was alive at the time, and he knew that I was going to write this script, and so I wrote it, and he read it, and he loved it, and then Johnny wasn't involved anymore, and Oscar, about 9 years ago, read this thing, and he said, if you're going to do this, I'm your man. And so he's known about it for a while, and here we are, and he is my man.
My man.
My man. He's my man.
Oscar, why? What about that script? It's a really difficult part. It's being Dante and Nick Tosh.
And it's I think the impossibility of it. I think that's why we get into these kinds of things. To try the impossible dream, right? Something about moving towards the more mysterious. It's like to read it and have no idea how one would realize it. I think that's what's so exciting about it. And really, it's Julian. He's a visionary, and he is unlike any other artist that's working today or has ever worked in film. So the opportunity to just dive into this kind of expressionistic work was an intoxicating idea.
I think there is a question there. Someone raised their hand.
Thank you, Oscar.
Yeah.
Hello, morning. Marco Consoli, La Stampa Daily. Mr. Schnabel, you are not only a filmmaker, but an artist. And usually artists put their, thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, and even their private life in their arts. I want to ask you, in the past days, there has been this idea that some actors from your film should have been boycotted and not invited to the festival. I want to ask you what you think about boycotting artists. I don't know, today there is also the voice of HIND RAJAB. I think everybody was moved by that film. If you want to say something about what's happening. So boycotting artists and what's happening in Gaza, thanks.
I think there's no reason to boycott artists. I selected those actors for their merits as actors, and they did an extraordinary job in the film. And that's about it. As far as, I think we should talk about the movie rather than this issue.
And there is a question here.
Hi, I'm Zachariah from London, speaking for Feature First. Firstly, congratulations on the film to you all. And my question for Oscar, congratulations on Frankenstein as well. I was there at the premiere and your performance was incredible. So I want to say that. And for this film, could you share your preparation from an acting perspective and how it was like to collaborate with such a talented team with you right now?
We filmed the first couple, almost 3 weeks of filming was done here in Venice, and that was the last time I was here. So it was amazing to arrive and have all those feelings come rushing back. It felt like a matter of plunging in and holding on and letting go. You know, we moved so quickly and so fast from one incredible location and set of circumstances to the next as we, did this basically travelogue as we moved around Italy and in New York. For me, there was almost something every night that I would come home, almost something Talmudic about the way that I would prepare at night. I would have Nick Tosh's book, Nick Tosh's poetry, recordings of him, and the Divine Comedy, 3 different translations in English, and then the original Italian. And depending on what we were shooting the next day, derive and divine from these texts to see what would be possible the next day, what maybe we could add in, what we could replace, what could just be there to be able to trust the 1 or 2 takes that we would be able to get before the light went, before we had to move on to the next place. And I just also remembered how beautiful it was, because no matter what time we finished, no matter what had gone down, as soon as I would get in the car to go home, the first call I would get in the car minutes later would be Julian calling to talk about the day, to say how incredible it was, to just give me support and to get me excited about the next day. So it was, I've never had that before, and I haven't had that since.
I want to follow up with Oscar's, what Oscar was saying. The film has different tones, different genre. It goes from noir to almost at the end an absurdist comedy. Can you talk about how it was? How did you combine all these elements, both on the page but also in the film? Because stylistically, even the filming changes.
Well, it's a tragic comedy. I think people have been trying to do that for a long time. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but I think life is like that. It's funny, it's tragic, it's quite mad. When I read Nick's book, Nick never said that he was Dante, and Nick couldn't have said that he was Dante, but I could say that he is. And it's not a thesis on the Divine Comedy. I think it shows that it's actually a contemporary work. All art brings you into its present when you see it. Winston Churchill said, "You shouldn't read a book when you're too young." Probably all the Italian people in this audience read the Divine Comedy in school. But I think that if you read it at another moment in your life and you see what he was talking about, it's extremely contemporary. If you see a Caravaggio painting today, it brings you into its present. And that's what art can do. It can transgress death. And the whole point is that there is no past and there is no future. There's only the eternal present. And I've always thought about the simultaneity of time, whether it has to do with my paintings or it has to do with filmmaking. The only thing that exists is the work of art. He's going to die. We're all not going to be here. But whatever is in...
Just me?
No, right. I mean, I said all of us are not going to be here. But what is recorded is there. What he did is in there. And when Isaiah says to, excuse me, dear, when Isaiah says to Dante, you've lifted the veil on the inexpressible, you've entered the sigh, you've become the poem. That's all artists could wish for, to become the poem, to become their work. I'd been working on this so long that I was holding Lou Reed in my arms when he died, and I told him, you've become the poem. And I think he was satisfied with that. So somehow, there's a difference between life and art. Art is a representation of life. Life contains death. A representation of life doesn't. So it's a denial of death. So you can never have pessimistic and optimistic art. You can only have optimism, and there's only talent and mediocrity. And so all art is optimistic, and even if the characters are tragic. So I think that making something is worth it. And doing the work together, I mean, these people that are sitting here next to me did something more beautiful than I could even imagine. I could just maybe put them in a situation where they have to react or do something, but what they gave me and what they did is beyond anything that's beyond my control. I could just sort of set the stage for that, and they did it.
Luis, you work among others with Martin Scorsese, and how is different the process than working with Julian?
I mean, this was a very particular kind of project, and each of Marty's movies that I did were pretty different. One big difference for Marty's movies was just the budget that was available, the time that was available. You heard Oscar talk about how a lot of things here were just, pressing through and, fighting light and things like that. There's a simpatico in terms of, I think, how they approach work. They both, as you just heard, they both have great affection for their actors, and they give their actors a lot of freedom. And they support their actors. I think that it's an important thing, at least for me, once the director's chosen to work with you, to say, okay, we're gonna go all the way with this, and I want you to bring what you've got. And Julian's certainly that way. Yeah, so in that way, they're quite similar. In terms of actual, day-to-day production, was a very sort of different kind of project, but interest in life, interest in action, interest in the thing that's happening, that's actually the same. There's a real shared spirit there.
And Benjamin, Julian has always been very creative with his casting. And were you approached first as a musician or first as part of, as an actor in the film?
Okay, thank you. I was approached as a friend and a son. That's how I was approached.
Okay.
Hello, Mazzetto Messo, Notturno Cinema. My question is for the director, Snabel. I am curious to know if you have thinking from the beginning to involve people like the Don Lecco character played by Franco Nero, or also Martin Scorsese as Isaiah. Have you planned already, or he came along during the work?
Marty and I are very, very, very good friends. He's been extremely supportive of my work as a filmmaker. He lived that life. There was a line that's not in the film anymore, but where he actually said to Dante, it's easy, you can lie and go to hell or tell the truth and be crucified. Marty has been crucified, and he's gone. And the other thing is you can make heaven or hell right here on earth. And Marty really wanted to do this, and I thought that there wasn't anybody else that I wanted to play that part. In fact, it's not even fair to say he was playing a part, because there's no acting going on in this film. Everybody is reacting to a situation they were in. Marty came to this, it's a sui generis kind of moment. He's extraordinary in this film. What he has to say is the essence of the core of the film. And Dante, all he wants is the approval of this guy who thinks he might understand what he did. And when finally Isaiah says to him, "My name is Jacob," it's the best review he could ever have. And I can tell you one thing, that when Marty hugged Oscar and the two of them were standing there, there was real love there. And Marty loved doing this, he told me so, and it was my great pleasure. And not only, well, that's just with Marty, but Franco Nero showed up. He said, I'm really here as an extra, but the fact is he's so cool and he's so great, and every part is important. And Paolo Bonicelli, who was in Salo, who worked with Pasolini, Lorenzo Sorzolo, Guido Caprino, Claudio Santamaria. I mean, we had Sabrina Impacciatori. We had a lot of Italian actors that were spectacular, and Sabrina went nuts. And it was super important for her to do that. It's hard to do that, and the shift in the storytelling and the way that that would work. I mean, how do you resolve these things? And if you think about it, in Dante, I mean, there's so many, he's like a concierge. He goes through hell, meeting all these people, doing all of this stuff. And, if somebody, I went to all of these libraries, and there are people guarding pieces of paper, living with pieces of paper, and they identify with that. So the notion that she would be in love with the character, that she would think she was that, is totally plausible. Because, I mean, do you have a connection with Walt Whitman or with, I mean, I don't know who your favorite writers would be, but obviously we're transgressing death when we're making things. And I mean, I named my daughter Esme. J.D. Salinger wrote a short story called For Esme with Love and Squalor. He meets this little girl. Before he goes to war, she's singing in a choir, sees him, chats him up in a pub. She's got this big watch on her arm. And she says, well, what do you do? He says, I'm a writer. He says, well, maybe you could write me a short story, but it's got to have a lot of love and squalor in it. And so then he doesn't see her. He goes to war, comes back. He's got post-traumatic stress. He's in the hospital, and he's ready to kill himself. And he writes this as Sergeant X. He gets a box in the mail, opens it up, and there's that watch. And she says, where's that story with love and squalor? And he doesn't kill himself. So what is the power of that? I mean, I named my child that because in this situation, in this world that we're living in now, you better have some hope. Anyway.
Right here. No. Qua, davanti, grazie. Qua.
Hi. I really like what did you said about the role of art, because I'm a psychologist. I use it for the cinema therapy, and thank you for that. I want to ask you, and also the Isaac and actors, what did you learn about yourself during this beautiful trip, during this movie? What did you touch in you? You can tell me. Thank you.
I think for me, something that resonated a lot with me is the artist in exile, and that there's something about exile that maybe is necessary for the artist. I know that for me, there's been always something that's felt on the outside of things, not really participating. And so I think maybe even some of the sense of becoming the poem is some sense of belonging, finally. And that there's something in the search for that. And so Dante's exile was quintessential for him, to be able to move through the space, there had to be space created to come back to. And so the fact that Nick Tosh is also writing about being in exile as well, emotional exile and artistic exile in a world of commerce, and how one comes home. I think that's been something that stayed with me.
And to kind of extrapolate on what he just said, when Dante wrote about Beatrice, and he's in love with, he's basically 9 years old. I mean, the girl's 9 years old. He talks about being in love with this 9-year-old. What is he in love with? Is he in love with the girl, or is he in love with his projection of what he wrote about that? So basically, his wife had to live, and his children had to live with this guy's preoccupation with this character. But the character is really his art. He's in love with his description of that. And so it's very difficult for the wife or the person that is with a regular person, because there's an incongruity between life and art. And so the idea that Gemma was really the right person that he was with, and it just took 700 years for him to figure it out, is sort of cool to me, because I think there's a lot of people that might make a perfect work of art, but their life is a mess. And I thought that I like the idea of failure, that you're striving to do something that's perfect, but your life might be a failure. And I think that there's a line by Bob Dylan that says there's no success like failure, and failure is no success at all.
There's a question here. No, please go ahead.
Oh, wow. I'll just add one little thing. So for me, the story is kind of about friendship. My characters are friends of Nick and Dante. But also, Julian was talking about people being trapped outside the poem, right? And also about talent and mediocrity. And everybody who's an artist wants to be a talented one, not a mediocre one. And one of the real sort of strong things in the script and the relationship is my guys are both mediocrities. They're outside and they don't understand. Lefty doesn't understand what Nick's on about. He can't. They're friends. It's friendship. It's something more simple and not, all the wonderful things about poetry and this. But he's outside of that. And similarly with Polenta, who wants to help the project, he sees that there's something there that's beautiful, but he doesn't understand it. He's outside of it. And I don't know. I don't really know what that means in the context of your question, but it is a sort of a different angle on the thing. There's the artist's struggle, and then there's everybody else's struggle to reckon with beauty and with, what does it mean? I mean, it's beautiful, but what does it mean, and how does it, and what's my role in it as a mediocrity?
there's a degree of talent in mediocrity. So.
I mean, the fact is, you were a very good soldier, and you were actually listening. And when Nick was saying, well, I'm working on this translation of the Divine Comedy. I've been working on it for 10 years. I feel like I wrote it myself. He also said, well, nobody ever listens to what you're saying. It's always the drink. Well, Lefty may be drinking with him, but he did tell Joe Black that I know a guy that knows about the Divine Comedy, and we can pull him in. We're pulling in this guy. He's half legit, and he's a writer. And he's going to move this thing along. Then, later, when we see Guido de la Polenta, who says, whatever you might need to finish your poem, the world will have your poem. So in both cases, this friend, in one case, a lower mafia soldier, in the other case, his benefactor, who actually paid for this work to get finished, and for the paper in the book. I thought it was kind of cool in the same way that Pope Boniface is the Pope, and Louis is an assassin, but they're both assassins, basically.
I think she's. Oh, okay. Go ahead, and then her. Yeah.
So multi-layered. And my question is, maybe there are the works of art in your life that are so important for you as the Divine Comedy for the protagonist, and also the follow-up thing about the visual language, because it's really very specific and very beautiful. What were the main inspirations for that? Thank you.
For the visual language of the film? There was a line in a film that I made called At Eternity's Gate about Van Gogh. And when Dr. Gagé says to Vincent, "Why do you paint?" he says, to stop thinking. Is that a form of meditation? He says, no. When I paint, I stop thinking and I become a part of everything that's outside of me and inside of me. So, in the same way that there's a history of painting where we would go, say, from Giotto to Caravaggio to Vincent van Gogh to Jackson Pollock or whatever, there is a lineage of things, a message handed from painter to painter. It's like that in film. So if you think of Antonioni, if you think of La Notte, if you think of Stanley Kubrick and The Killers, if you think of even Marty's movie Raging Bull, and then if you think of Tarkovsky, The Mirror, or whatever, you've got all this stuff, or you have it in your head. You don't even know it's there, but subconsciously all of these things, so it affects your perspective. And as you're doing these things, I do it intuitively. I don't illustrate what I already know. And I think that's maybe why they like to work with me, because we kind of invent it as we go along. The script is a diving board that we could jump off of. And then they come in and do something, and then I react to that. And then we keep going. And even the music, Benjamin would come over, and we've known each other for 10 years. So, I mean, we're family. My black son. and I love it to death. And the music that he made, in fact, this piece that he's playing when Oscar and Gal walk into his palace is a piece he wrote for me years ago called Last Movement of Hope. And everything finds its place somehow, but I don't know if I answered your question, but that's how I work. I mean,
I think she has one here and then her.
Hello, here from Popcorn, Argentina. First of all, congratulations for the movie. And a question for the cast, especially given that you dedicate most of your life to one kind of art, which is cinema, and this movie has a lot to do with other kind of arts like literature, poetry, music, maybe. How do you think your relationship with other arts changed? How is that before and after the movie?
I mean, it is interesting because, Julian, you make movies about artists and about the act of creation, which is such a difficult, that's why it seems so impossible. It's so impossible to, how do you document inspiration? As an actor, I don't see so much difference in the form that it takes. We were talking, it's like what you said about Bob Hoskins, saying, it's the same, a stroke on the canvas and a moment in the take, where something happens. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of ephemeral thing of both having so much preparation and imagination, and then a letting go and seeing if grace happens. And so I think I see them as all coming from the same source.
I would say that art is not one-dimensional. You said literature. You said other so-called genres. It's everything. Anyone can be whatever they want to, being an artist is not just doing one thing. So if you have that perspective, you would understand why we're sitting here, because I don't see Oscar as an actor, or Julian as a director, or Louis. You get my point. It's anyone can do whatever they want if they practice and work hard to do it. That's what I see.
Yeah, Marlon Brando said anybody can act. It's just some people are boring to watch and some people aren't.
Hello, I'm here after 1 hour. I
Okay.
can ask you.
What was it boring until now?
No, no, it's because I have a cramp in the arm.
I'm sorry, I have a cramp too, my knee.
Okay, so thank you for bringing up the Rembrandt painting. You're an artist and you are a filmmaker. How do you think your art can influence the way you see and produce film? First question. And secondly, many of your colleagues, they don't remind themselves that it's called the 7 art, just because it takes all the other in. So what is your plus and how your art can transform a movie? Thank you.
My perspective comes from being a painter. And I see past the frame. I don't want it to fit into the frame. I don't want it to be over when the movie's over. There's something that you could posit yourself into. I posited this into a stasis, like a drug. You need it again, go watch the movie again if you want to be in that place again. But like I said before, everything that's not in the film doesn't exist. Everything that's not in the painting that I make doesn't exist. So it better be good, because we're not making it to sell it, we're making it to see it. I'm leaving it here, so when I'm not around or whatever, there is, what did he do when he was here? He did that. And there's a line that it's not even in there anymore. He said when Oscar is asking David Hanker says, well, what is something like this worth? And he said, there's nothing like this, there's only this. Now, I don't know if I answered your question or not, but my perspective comes from looking at things. And for example, the fact that I don't come from literature, if I'm working and we're in Mexico and the river goes up 7 meters, I take the camera and I put it some other place. If the production designer happens to be somewhere else and we're going to shoot a scene and I need to get on a cherry picker and write the word Euphrasia on a cement wall and break a door down to put a light in there so we could keep shooting, I can do it because I make physical things. I come from a world of making things. And I never thought I was going to be a movie director. But if you're a painter and you tell actors what to do, they don't have to listen to you. But if you're the director, they might be interested in what you have to say, and then you can either help them along or share what they can do together. And it is, it's very liberating to just paint and not have to talk to anybody and be alone. But on the other hand, it's very liberating to be with people that are super talented, that can do something that you can't do, and get input from them. And instead of protecting what you might want to do, let them bleed into you, and then you bleed together. And it's, and that's pretty damn satisfying.
You make good paint.
Well, you're not a tube of paint, man.
I am really sorry, but they're calling us for time. We run out of time. Thank you, Julian.
I wanted to say, excuse me, wait a second.
Hold on.
Wait a second, everybody. I just want to say one thing, please. I really wanted to thank, there's so many producers on this film. There's so many people that contributed to getting this thing done. And I just wanted to thank them for their belief in blind faith to see this thing get made, and I wanted to thank my sons for sticking there with me through this thing and making this happen, because without that, we wouldn't be here. It was a complex thing to do, and with their support, we were able to be here today, and I just wanted to thank them. So, and I want to thank my wife. I got to thank my wife, because my wife edited this film with Marco Spolatini, and my wife wrote this thing with me, and my wife probably kept me from jumping out of a window. Okay, thank you. Louise.
We need to go.
Okay, we got to go. Okay.
E con grande piacere che vi presento i registi del film, Alexander Rodiansky e Andriy Alferov. Attendo naturalmente le vostre domande. Comincerei con il chiedervi da dove parte questo progetto, quando avete deciso di dargli questa impostazione, ovvero l'impatto che questi eventi storici che riguardano l'Ucraina hanno avuto sulla vostra storia personale.
I would answer in English, of course. Thank you very much for coming, and thanks for question. And it's a simple and complicated answer. This movie was born many years ago when I was a documentary filmmaker, and my last documentary, made in 1994, 31 years ago, was, as it turned out today, prematurely titled Farewell USSR. Prematurely because for USSR, as we see, is breaking up right now in a bloody way with this war which is going on in our native Ukraine. So, shooting that film on the ruin of the vast empire which was breaking apart before my eyes, I shot one scene that stayed with me forever, and that I was coming back to for years. In that film, in a distant '94, I found myself thinking, looking at the soldiers living, Soviet soldiers living in East Germany, looking into the faces of these people, I found myself thinking about whether they were returning from the war or going to the new one. They were just a few years before, it was in '94, the citizens of the same country. They were standing in the same army, serving the same army, and they were coming to the newly born countries that had already the conflicts. So, and when the Russian-Ukrainian war started, this question came back to me. So we started to discuss, because we were discussing many movies and many political circumstances for years, we started about the possibility to do the documentaries that would connect the events going on in the in the current war in Ukraine with what I shot in the end of '80s and the beginning of '90s, with what was shot by my members of my family during World War II or later by my mentor I was a student of, and make a film about not just the war, but people and history and generations of families whose fates got intertwined with the history of our countries. So that's how it happened. It took, on one side, I remember the old, I'm not trying to compare, but I remember the old answer of Bergman to the question about scenes from marriage when he was asked how long did it take to write the script. He said 20 days. Then he took a break and said in 20 years. So it's 30 years and a few days.
Come avete lavorato insieme anche ai materiali che abbiamo visto, la scelta degli eventi da raccontare, il video, il materiale, le immagini che avete scelto di mostrare?
So it was not so easy because we're trying to find the good form for good narration for that story, because this war is about the past who doesn't want to gun. And we're trying to compare all those footage we find in Ukraine, in Kiev, in Kharkiv, or in personal Kharkiv of Alexander's family. And for a long time, we're trying to put them together to make the movie about the past who's trying to represent in the modern time.
Se ci sono delle domande, alzate bene la mano. Quali sono state le trappole che volevate evitare? Cioè, quali erano i rischi di una ricostruzione che segue le logiche che avete scelto e quali trappole volevate evitare?
Traps were obvious, actually, and the concern. Oh, I'm sorry. There were obvious traps, challenges, and concerns that were bothering us, and me especially. We never wanted to come up with a political movie. It's a lot of political movies, and everyone understands what this war is about on both sides. The people who had time to define themselves and take a position on, they know everything. So this is not an attempt to enlighten people about what happened. It's not, you know, the study of the, you know, roots of this war or conflict. It's a movie very much set in the world of human dimension, how this war affected and shaped the, you know, the personal history of many people living in that region. Many, many people, because I personally believe that the personal story told in honest and direct way could make the people identify themselves with an experience of those who made the movie, and probably provides them with the possibility to gain some experience and change somehow their life or their perception of the most important events going outside. So the traps was not to be very political. It was not the idea to blame someone. We know who is guilty. We know who aggressor is. We know everything about the war. We were trying to make a movie about how to survive and how to keep the human conditions during these most difficult times of war.
Sì, c'è una domanda qui, la signora qui.
Hello, Natalia Zhukkarta, Berlin. Yeah, I wanted to ask, now when we talk about the movies about our war, I say our because I'm Ukrainian by origin, it's sometimes the question, is it more for the people who are there in the situation or the people who are outside? When you were doing this movie, were you thinking of what audience would accept it more like readily, or is it a total difference between the points of your audience inside and outside the country, so in the West, so to say? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good question. Speaking frankly, it started as a very personal diary we decided to do. I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying that we never had a plan to distribute this movie and to have, you know, the trajectory going across the globe and having it broadcasted by TV networks or something like that. There was no single idea of that. I believed that this is something, I had the reasons that motivated me to do this. I've been a documentary filmmaker for years. I had my movies. I had this experience. I had a lot of footage which is kept by my family and in my house. And I thought, this is not a bad idea to come up with a kind of, you know, diary or personal statement with the help of my friend and partner in crime, you know, which could live and be watched in 30, 40, 50 years by our kids or grandkids or whoever wants to. Then it happened when this movie got, you know, along together, I've got decided this is probably not a bad idea to explore with an audience. When you ask me what audience would be the specific target, I don't think this is the good answer when we mention the geographical borders. It would divide, this audience is divided by the emotional status, the understanding of the war, the treatment of the war, how you believe the future could be built. Because if it's going to be built just on hate, it's going to be no future. If we find a way to survive as a human being, that could be probably something else. So basically, if you ask me, this is the movie about the curse of endless war as well, which got affected the lives of many generations of people living in the country. And that's why there are 4 generations of my family in the movie. And every single generation, you know, somehow got affected. I never thought, being a kid, that we will experience the war in our life after what happened during World War II. And now our kids, and much younger people are fighting and dying. And that makes the whole story absolutely horrible. So I believe this movie is done for the people who can feel for others and who can actually discuss the world without... I know we're not naive people. The movies are not going to change the course of history, and we're not going to make the bad people good. But we can help some good people. We can give them a sign that they are not alone. There are some other people like them. And I believe there are many of them, plenty of good people on all sides of all wars living today in the world.
Anche grazie ai film che stiamo vedendo, insomma, al festival quest'anno ci si sta interrogando spesso su quale debba essere il ruolo dell'arte. L'arte viene necessariamente investita, diciamo, dall'onda lunga dei conflitti geopolitici e è inevitabile che, insomma, l'arte si confronti con quello che accade nel mondo. Quindi non un film politico, espressamente politico, ma insomma, però lo è per necessità, no? L'arte non può rimanere indifferente a quello che accade. Quindi se ci può dire un po' meglio qual è il confine tra opera politica e così è un lavoro che necessariamente diventa politico.
Well, when I said we never wanted this movie to be political, I never meant this movie is trying to be outside of politics. Not at all. I meant this is the movie. At least we were working with an idea to do the movie which would not be described only in the political terms. Mm-hmm. We wanted to have it much broader. I believe this conversation, if we speak about political terms, could be ended in 20 minutes if we start to discuss something with the people who are on the different sides. And it would be a good idea if we don't kill each other during this conversation. So I believe that movie is the only way to be kind of a bridge that would make the people able to understand other people's emotions, life, position. That's what I mean is political. Mm-hmm. And definitely in our movie is clear when we absolutely, aware of what, war is going on. And we know who is killing people in Ukraine. It's clear, it's alphabetical, and that this is clear for the whole world. But we try to find a way for people who believe, in the life, that war somehow would end, and who want to survive through this war and, and protect their human existence, not to get traumatized, to fight with the internal demons. That's what this movie is about. When I say we never wanted to have it political. Mm-hmm. But of course, I agree with you. Every movie is political in a way how it treats the political events and public events and what's going on today.
Come ricordava prima, questi eventi hanno avuto un impatto forte sulla sua vita, quella di generazioni, la sua famiglia per generazioni. Che cosa ha condiviso con la sua famiglia durante la lavorazione del film? What do you share with your family?
Sorry, my mic never functions. What did they share with the family?
During the preparation?
Practically nothing, actually. Not, there are very few people who watch this movie. In my family, only my wife. even kids, even my son who is in the movie, he never watched it. He
Why?
never had the chance. You know, because we were doing, as I said, in a very personal, in a very discreet, in a very kind of isolated way. And this is a very tiny crew. And I never wanted, as I said, to have this movie done in a professional way. We never applied it for any fund, any television network. You know, probably that was my experience of producer. I could apply, and I know probably, if not everyone in the industry, but many people. I never used this opportunity. I decided to finance this tiny movie out of my own pocket, just to be absolutely independent, just to be free and speak out in a way that we feel, and we feel important. So that's why I never wanted to interfere in other private lives, especially my close ones. But on the other side, I never wanted to be depending on what they think is important as well. Because this movie, if it has a sense, it is a sense of being honest and being sincere. It's, you know, somehow, I believe documentaries are very much about the conversation with yourself, with your own internal. And this is how that's been built.
I forgot what I was saying, right? Don't you think that this kind of movie, the way you tell the Ukraine story, would be a very good chance for the young people to learn something about the past and maybe have more to discuss about the present and the future?
It's always good to have a context. I believe everyone should be given a lot of information and a lot of emotional experience of other people. I don't believe today the people are picking up facts and then trying to analyze it and compare and come up with a certain, position. I do believe the people in the contemporary world, like in the sects, they pick up only the facts that are fitting to what they already believe in. They're not challenging their beliefs, their faith, if you want to say. That's why I so strongly believe that movies have a unique way to actually touch the people, to make them think, because they provide them with an emotional experience of other people. And when you see the emotional experience, even unconsciously, you start to think about yourself, your family, its history, its challenges, its problems. And some people can start to be really honest with themselves, because one of the major challenges, this is the way that many people try to imitate their beliefs in order to be the part of the majority around. Everyone believes that is right. Everyone believes this is how we should go. So, but at the same time, you have your own questions. And when you see the sincere conversation on the screen, you start to speak with the people. It's an idea of dialogue, and also a dialogue of the young people. Why not? I think it's sometimes, for some people, it could be of help. For some people, not. Some people could get, absolutely different, wrong understanding of what we were trying to come up with. And some people would feel the key to this film, which looks very simple, but at the same time, it's constructed in a quite complicated way. Many characters, many stories, many storylines. It's a tricky way to get into the conversation. But once you are built up this bridge, then you can get the emotional reaction inside of you.
And do you think that being here in Venice will change something for the movie? Maybe more people will have the chance to see it, and something will change after the festival. This is one of the main mission of the festival.
Yes, two missions I believe are important. Festival is an important platform for this to present the different positions.
Yeah.
And build up the bridges, cultural bridges, first of all, and dialogue between the different people. And second, to help the movies with, certain language the movies which are not going to be easily promoted by advertising and picked up by distribution, to help them, find the perfect home. For documentaries, this is the only way, documentaries are not, if they're not about celebrities or done by celebrities. If you watch the platforms, what would you see today in the area of documentaries? Athletes, pop stars, and not social issues documentaries. I'm not trying to complain. This is just a matter of fact. So in order to have these important movies work, you need to get the movie presented by the major festival like Venice, very influential, to get other festivals and countries and distribution interested, and that's how movie would start to live. And because this movie got invited to Venice, it got immediately few invitations from all over the world. It got the distribution, at the moment international distribution, and interest of potential television networks or streaming platforms.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works, the only way.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, thank you very much for the movie. I have a question about the revenge that is present in the movie. I mean, the revenge for the crimes that had place in the 20th century. We also see this circle of violence that's going on one and more again and again in Europe. Do you think that there is any ending to this, and who and how can actually end this circle of violence that's been in Europe for a lot of time now? Thank you.
Well, this is the most complicated question of the human history. It's not the question to me or, let's say, even to this film. Of course, I've shot in my life a few stories, and this one about the Mein Kampf is just one of many. Few stories with the people who were absolutely sure they were innocent, at least in the crimes they were convicted of. And their families believed they were innocent. And some people thought it doesn't make any difference because they were complicit and they were involved. So generally what I'm trying to say that human history is so complicated that you wouldn't find justice in the end. The only justice we can find, this is justice inside of us. The idea how we treat the right and wrong, the evil and good. That's the most important. And at least with the movies, the only address we can send our messages, even the simplest ones, is an address of the human nature. We can speak to the people. We don't speak to the governments. We don't influence the political decisions. At least I don't think we're able to do this. And I don't believe someone of powerful politicians would watch the documentary today and change his position or understand how wrong he was and makes an assumption of it, and then not at all. But let's say some people would get that the world is much more complicated than they thought. It's not simplistic, it's not black and white, it's not easy, going, and you have the people based, divided, not been based on the passports, nationalities, or citizenships, but based on their views, actions, and human and moral. And that's what we try to speak about.
I'm sure, no one can stop it. People has to stop it. People has to start to stop to hate each other, start to tolerate each other.
I have one question about, you were saying before how complicated was the structure of the movie. So why did you decide to go back and forward and not use a linear storytelling to tell all the different episodes and facts that?
Because it's not a narrative-driven story. There is nothing important going on narratively. It's not the, let's say, lyrical hero coming to explore their circumstances and going through the certain turbulences in order, to discover something and to get change in the end. It's not about that. This is the emotional history, and I wanted very much to have the movie which would connect the different stories and find the common ground in them, to make people understand that what's going on today started not, let's say, 3, 4, or even 11 years ago. It's something much, much earlier. It's going to be changed not after, let's say, ceasefire would be achieved. It's something wrong with our nature. At the end of the day, this is a story about what's going on with us humans, and is it something wrong with the nature? Because we're discussing the wars here every single festival around the globe. Like we just faced the war recently, just like it started yesterday. But as long as we remember ourselves, it's always going on. The people kill each other, the people hate each other, the people don't understand each other. That's why I wanted to do this movie, a little bit in a broader context, to face myself as a, let's say, character in the movie. I don't mean myself as a filmmaker, with the challenges of the human existence. I'm sorry for saying this way, human existence, because that would make other people identify themselves with that experience. I do believe this movie could be easily watched outside in any country which had this similar background, or is the war going on, or conflicts, or national divisive conflict, ethnic or religious. It's very much about that.
Dobbiamo fermarci qui, se non ci sono altre domande. Aveva una domanda? Allora prego.
Thank you for this powerful film. I have 2 questions. For Alexander first, how did it feel to return to directing? And for Andrei, how did it feel collaborating on this project together?
Well, it's not easy, I must tell you, because being a producer and been presenting movies here in Venice and in Cannes and Berlin for years, many times, I never found myself, I would say, overconfident, but I never been vulnerable. Emotional about that. It's somehow, when you're a director, and probably this kind of experience of myself, which was part of my life for years, made me privileged to work with amazing filmmakers, because I understand them really well. And now I got this experience myself. You feel yourself confused, naked, and overexposed. You don't want this, but this is the name of the game, and that's how I found. Sometimes in this regard, this movie is a real one, because it's done in a way like it is supposed to be, in a good way. When you feel you need this movie, you don't need. I never had a need to do the movie. It doesn't add something to my life, except if I had an internal need. That was the reason. So that's why it is not such an easy experience for myself. 31 years later, after the last movie I've done as a director. Thanks.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrei. Grazie. Do you want to add something?
So it was not hard to collaborate because we spent a long time together and we talked a lot about the movies. That's why it was easy for us, because we worked together before. When I made my first feature, Alexander was a producer of that feature. And for me, it was really easy. I love that experience.
Thank you very much. Grazie.